So the focus of the homily is a little bit different today. I want to talk about the proposed maintenance and refurbishment of the church. So I forecasted that this was coming, and so it's now time to present where we've got to. There's been a little reference group in the parish, myself and Jackie Krisnick, one of the leadership team members, and then a couple of architects in the parish have been liaising with both the Archdiocese and the architects that we've appointed to get to this stage where we're really at the point of being able to talk about the concept design of the parish, of the church. And so the time's come to share that vision with you. We've also talked about it at the level of staff, parish council, finance committee as well. So there are two things that we absolutely critically have to do. The first of those is we need to put a new roof on the church. Someone was saying to me after 7 a.m. Mass this morning that ever since this church was built, it's been leaking. And so we need to fix that, hopefully once and for all. You might be able to see there on that angle that there are 2 levels to the roof. If you actually walk out and have a look, at the moment there are 3. So we're going to cut out one of the levels. And the reason for that, as we change the pitch, will be that it'll reduce the water pressures, the spots where water can accumulate, and therefore then come in and leak into the church. So it's kind of not, having said that it's always been an issue, a 40-year-old church, this would be about the time. You think about if you've got a 40-year-old home, it's about the time you have to do significant maintenance on the place. So that's the first thing. The other thing you'll note, just on that first slide there, there's draft written all the way through it. That's very, very obviously with good reason. These are conceptual drawings. I was going to say the devil's in the details. That doesn't feel quite appropriate, does it? The Holy Spirit's in the details. So if there are some details where you find you're curious about a detail and you can't see it up there, it doesn't mean we haven't thought about it or talked about it. I obviously don't have time to present it all, and it also means that sometimes we're still working through some of those details, so feel free to ask. The second thing we need to do is to cool the church down. This will not come as a surprise, I don't think. That it can get very, very hot in summer. And so that's a complicated thing in a building of this size. And so the solution will be a mixture of things. We've had various professional advice about this. It'll be a mixture of things from increasing the extraction of air from the church, making sure there's good airflow, replacing the fans, and we're also going to put in some air conditioning. And so you can see there on the slide, at the very top of, just before you get to the ceiling, there's those round holes. They're air conditioning ducts. And so they'll pump cold air into the church as well. So that combined effect we've got from the engineers was saying that this will be significantly cooler as a result. So that's exciting, isn't it? The third thing that we want to do is to make some alterations to the church's interior. And I wanted to just talk about the 3 principles that we're using that have shaped our reflections and work so far. The first one is that there needs to be continuity with the past, both the church as it is now and even going back to the original church. So we need to make sure that we're being faithful. You can't just gut a church and start again. The second thing is that we'd want to be liturgically faithful. The church gives us principles about what churches should look like and what should be in them, and we want to be faithful to those principles. And then the third one, which is also a principle the church gives us, is it should be beautiful. And so when you put those 3 things together, in an ideal world, they would just harmoniously work together perfectly. In reality, you are balancing competing demands between those 3 principles. So with that, what are the things that we're planning to do? The first thing we want to do is we're going to refurbish the toilets. And if that doesn't look like a place you can recognise yet, that's because we're going to change how it looks. And so you'll access, there'll be 3 toilets, all unisex, and one is a universal access toilet, really important to provide greater accessibility for people. But you'll also see, if you look back, that's the crying room there, and the doors are gone. So we thought it was better that you don't access the bathrooms from the crying room. And so now, when you walk into the foyer, The door on the left, it will be into the crying room. The door on the right is currently the door into the piety stall. That will actually become the corridor into those bathrooms. And the bathrooms will all be renovated, they'll be brand new. Second thing to point out would be the refurbishment of the chapel. One of the things that will happen is this door will be replaced, and the reason for that is that the outside levels are changing with all the work that's happening next door. And so the door will go up the back, and you'll be able to walk in the door of the church and into the chapel, which will be a Blessed Sacrament chapel. It'll be a place for quiet prayer. We think that'll be a beautiful space. It'll draw upon the existing images. Those two statues are from the original church. They're there at the moment. We'll use those. There'll also be an opportunity for prayer. And then you'll be able to come into the church from there. Won't be the main entrance. Obviously the main entrance is here. But you'll also be able to close that off. And so you'll be able to pray in there without providing access into the main body of the church as well, which at certain times of the day is going to be very beneficial. Okay, what's next? The Stations of the Cross are going to move. So at the moment, the stations are all down that wall, which means that you can't really make the Stations of the Cross. The Stations of the Cross, you normally move from station to station. And so we're going to relocate them along the back wall of the church so that you can prayerfully make the Stations of the Cross along the back. And you'll also see there it says new carpet. Don't get wedded to that colour. We absolutely have not decided what that colour will be, but it will definitely be new carpet. Okay. Next, we're going to place a crucifix in the sanctuary. This is one of those moments where the liturgical principles are important. So the church makes it really clear that there should be the crucifix should be a central focus in the sanctuary. And the reason for that is because when we celebrate the Mass, if you think about the words of Jesus at the Last Supper when he institutes the Eucharist, it's focused upon the sacrifice that he makes at Calvary, and the Mass is our participation in that sacrifice. And so a crucifix much better reflects the link between what happened at Calvary and the Mass that we celebrate here each week at the altar. So that's why we're proposing that change. To give you a bit of a close-up of what we're hoping it will look like. My clicker's playing up on me. There we go. Oh, sorry. There. It won't look. It'll be something pretty close to that. So we've begun conversations with an iconographer, and it'll look something along those lines, which we hope still picks up some of the resonances of the risen Jesus, even though it's clearly a crucifix. Okay. That brings us to the very important question of relocating the risen Jesus, because this is a statue that's very dear to people's hearts, including my own. We've made it the central kind of logo of our parish. For many people, it's something that we relate to very dearly when we come into the church. And so what we've done is we've suggested that we'll put it at the front of the church. We're going to put a skylight in. We'll put security cameras, lights. We think that there's an epoxy we can use to protect it. But we think it'll be a wonderful thing that as you walk into the church, you're being greeted, as it were, by the risen Christ. We think that that'll capture something, and it still gives a place of great prominence to this very central image of our parish. Coming back to the sanctuary, the space up here, you can see there that the plan is to replace the carpet up here with marble, and also to replace this ambo. The ambo, that's the technical term for this lectern. The lectern is supposed to speak to the altar, because we move from the table of the Word to the Eucharistic table. And so they should talk to each other. And so we'll replace this so it looks in keeping with and speaks to the altar in its design and in its materials. We're going to do something with the baptistry, so that's this space here. So you can see on the slide that what's currently a perspex and a cracked and worn perspex window, we're going to replace with an image. This is an image that will be based upon a very famous mosaic from Ravenna. It won't be a mosaic, it'll be more of a painting. But we're going to use this as our inspiration. The figure there in the centre is St Apollinaire. The church in Ravenna is named after him. We're going to put St Declan there because in the church that's dedicated to St Declan, the only church in Australia that's dedicated to St Declan, we don't have an image of St Declan anywhere. And so we want to fix that. And then we thought that the imagery here, which you have this beautiful scene of the new creation, of the new and eternal Jerusalem. So you've got all these beautiful, the trees and the animals, and you can see their symmetry because everything's perfect in the new kingdom of God. You'll also see the blue in the image. There's lots of stars in that. And in the book of Revelation, actually not too far from the passage we heard in the second reading today, stars are angels in the book of Revelation. And so we want to give a lovely sense of when you walk into the church, you're participating in the liturgy of heaven. And at the baptistry, you're entering into the new creation. When someone's baptized, they become a new creation in Christ. And so we want to reflect that in the design of the baptistry here, or the redesign of the baptistry. We currently have a print of Mary MacKillop, St Mary of the Cross, and there's also a little photo there of John Paul II praying at her tomb. Obviously, she's Australia's first saint. Our parish has a strong historical connection to the Josephites. It was a Josephite school here for many years. The charism and tradition of the Josephites continues. The house that the priests currently live in was a Josephite convent for many years. So we wanted to give Mary MacKillop, for those reasons, a place of greater prominence in the church. And so we're looking at placing an icon of her really about the spot where the door currently is. Okay? We think the combination of those two things also will balance up the church a lot more. At the moment, the two walls are a little bit lopsided, and so we're hoping that that'll give a greater sense of symmetry. It won't be exactly symmetrical, but it'll be more balanced than it currently is. Okay. Our proposal is to obscure the red glass around those three stained glass windows. The stained glass windows on this side are the original stained glass windows from the original church, and they're really beautiful. We think that those three often get lost with the red light, and they don't actually have their full effect and impact because of the red light coming through. The other thing that we've been advised is that the red light is one of the principal causes of the heat. So as the morning sun comes through there, that actually increases the heat in the church. So we want to address that. And also our intent is to paint the walls and the ceiling, as you've been able to see on the slides as well. How are we proposing to pay for it? You might remember that we had a residential rental property at the back that we sold to Sydney Catholic Schools as part of the redevelopment of the primary school. We've also sold some land around the administration block to Sydney Catholic Schools. So that will pay for the new parish administration and meeting room. It will also go a significant distance to paying for the renovations of the church, but we'd also be very open to donations for the refurb of the church as well. This is one of those moments that doesn't come around very often, but it's an opportunity to actually contribute to the worship space of a place for generations to come. So if you are in a position to give to some elements of the refurbishment of the church, we'd really gratefully receive those donations. Next steps. We're shortly going to go to council with an application for a development approval, and that's about the roof. It's not about the other things, but it's really very principally about the roof. We're also going to have a talk on the 18th of May. I'll give more details later. That's a couple of Sundays' time. In a 10-minute homily, I can only say so much, and particularly about the rationale, the why we've chosen to do some of the things that we want to do. And so we'll have a chance to unpack that at greater detail. And so that'll be on Sunday afternoon in a couple of weeks' time here in the church. We are looking for your feedback, and to that end, there's a box out there. Next to it are some feedback forms. You can fill them out. My email address is also there, and so you can flick me an email as well. We'd welcome your feedback because obviously there's some significant proposals that are coming. I don't get to make decisions unilaterally about this. Obviously there's a process within the parish that we've been going through, but it also requires archdiocesan approval too. And so there are various steps in that proposal, in that process as well. We've begun some of those, but there are more to come. Ultimately, the Archbishop will sign off on it. Please don't hold me to complete by the end of 2026, but that's very much our hope and intention, that by the end of next year, the renovations will be complete. I wanted to finish by, particularly this Easter season, I thought a way of capturing this and drawing it together would be to, some of you, not all of you, but some of you would have been at the Easter Vigil, where the Easter Vigil begins with a ceremony of light. And so the Paschal candle is brought into the church and we sing a song, a hymn to the candle, as it were. There's a beautiful line at the beginning of the very early part of this song that says, "Let this holy church shake with joy." Let this holy church shake with joy. And that's resonating and emphasising, referencing the significance of Easter when the earth shook as Jesus was raised from the dead. Why do I mention that in the context of the refurb of the church? We want people to be able to walk in and be drawn into the worship of heavenly things, to enter into the divine liturgy that's taking place even now in heaven. Every time we come to Mass, we join in with what's happening with the angels and saints. We want our church to speak to that and reflect that more fully so that we're able to draw out, to lift our minds and hearts more fully up to God.